Hi, this is Eric White. This is the second in a series of screencasts on Document Builder. This screencast builds on the previous screencast where I walked through the code that moved comments from the source document to the newly assembled document. In this screencast, I'm going to paste an image into one of the comments, and then we're going to assemble a new document from that. Coming back here over to our example, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little snap of something. I'll just take an image of a couple of things on the toolbar. Let's copy those, come over into the document and paste it. I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to edit comment2.docx. Go to comment number 3, take a snap of something. Let's grab the upper left corner of Word, copy that, and paste that into that comment. Save them and close them. Now let's look at the markup for comment1.docx. I'm going to drag comment1.docx to Visual Studio so we can look at it. Same situation as before, where we can see that document.xml has a relationship to comments.xml. And now we have something new here. In comments.xml, there is a relationship to media/image1.png. You can see here it has a relationship ID of RID1, and if we were to come over here into the media folder in the package, we can see the image1.png part. Let's also look at the markup in comments.xml. Let's open comments.xml, and I'm going to look for RID1. And here we can see the blip element that has an attribute of rembed that has a value of RID1. And that RID1 corresponds to this RID1, which is the relationship ID of the relationship from the comments part to that image part. We would see the identical structure if we were to look at comments2.docx. Now let's run the example. First of all, let's look at test 1. And here we can see comment number 1 and the image in comment number 1. And here is comment number 3 and its image. Let's go look at the markup. Now we can see that comments.xml has a relationship to two parts in the media folder. We can see the two parts there in the media folder. And if we look at the relationships, we can see that the IDs have this GUID-like ID instead of RID1. In this particular case, this is an ID that is assigned by the OpenXML SDK. It doesn't matter whether these IDs are something like RID1, RID2 as Word assigns them, or a GUID-like ID as the OpenXML SDK assigns, so long as the references in comment.xml have the right RIDs, then everything works just fine. So here we can see that the first RID starts with R95A3, and the second RID starts with RBE36. And let's look at comments.xml. If we drop down here, here's the first blip element, and we can see the RID of R95A3. And if we drop down further, we can see the second RID of RBE36. Let's close that and go look at Document Builder again. So here is the copy comments method again. This code down here, copy related parts for content parts, is the code that finds those elements, the a:/blip element, and then finds the related part, copies the related part to the new document, gets the RID assigned by the OpenXML SDK in the new document, and assigns that to the markup such that when that markup is inserted in the newly assembled document, the markup has the correct relationship ID to the part that has been copied to the new document. Let's look at test 1 again. One thing that you will notice in a document that has been completely constructed in the OpenXML SDK, as this one has, is that all of the resource IDs have this GUID-like ID. There's the relationship from the package to the main document part. There's the relationship from the package to the core properties part, the application properties part, from the document to the settings, from document to web settings, and so on. I want to go back to Document Builder and look at the code again. Here's the method, copy related parts for content parts. It queries for all the elements that could have relationships to other parts, and then it calls copy related image for each of those. Let's go to copy related image. There's a fair amount of plumbing that this method does, but the key point that I wanted to make here is, just as with updating the comment ID in the main document part so that the comment ID for the comment range start, the comment range end, and the comment reference point to the correct comments, here we're updating the image reference attribute. We're updating its value with the RID that was created by the OpenXML SDK when the OpenXML SDK added the new image part. One point I want to make about all of this, I've been thinking long and hard about how to build Document Builder in the purely functional style where you didn't have such code where you're updating attribute values in markup that is being copied to the new document. The basic problem is that this is the nature of document formats, that document formats have many interrelationships. We find interrelationships of comment IDs from the main document part that point to the comments part. We find interrelationships with bookmarks, where bookmarks have bookmark IDs that need to be unique across a document. We find interrelationships with these elements that point to other parts that contain images. We find interrelationships with such things as styles, where a style name must exist in the style part. And the list goes on and on. To do this in the pure functional style would entail first analyzing a complete document, setting up mappings for all of these various interrelationships. I was completely unconvinced that analyzing all of the source documents, creating mappings of everything that is an interrelated relationship, and then doing a transform from all of the source documents to the final assembled document, I was entirely unconvinced that doing it in that fashion would result in clearer code or be easier to debug and so on. I may do some experiments with that at some point in the future, but at this point in time, while Document Builder uses a lot of functional programming techniques and uses LINQ extensively, it is not a pure functional transform. It actually modifies state as it goes about doing its transform. This is something to keep in mind if you are enhancing Document Builder or maintaining it in any way. Last point that I'm going to talk about in this screencast is this method, manage image copy. Let's go to the definition of that method. What manage image copy does is it takes as an argument the image part from the source document and it takes this list of image data. What it does is it iterates through all the images in the list of image data, and it calls this compare method to see if the image that was passed in matches any of the images that Document Builder has already added to the newly assembled document. If it finds one in that list, it returns that particular image data object. If it doesn't find one, then it adds one and returns that one that was just added. Let's look at item.compare. Here's the method compare. It does various things such as looking for match of content type. It then checks to see if the image lengths are different. If they're different, then they are obviously different images. And then finally, it compares the images byte by byte, and if the images match completely, then it will use the image that has already been added to the new document. The main point about this is a fairly common scenario is a particular document may have the same image added to it many different times. For instance, there may be some kind of special bullet mark that the author of the document wanted for stylistic reasons or whatever, and they've added this particular image to the document maybe 50 or 100 times. We don't want to add 50 or 100 images to the newly assembled document when the original document only had one image. It's perfectly okay and is in fact expected that a particular image part has been added to the document and multiple places in the markup for a part that refers to that image all contain the same resource ID that points to that particular image part. Well, that's all I'm going to cover in this screencast. In the next screencast, I'm going to take a stroll through the Document Builder code and point out some other key features of the code.